So today, we're taking a deep dive into the life of a leader who, well, you could say he kind of defied expectations.
Interesting.
We're talking about Dr. Manmohan Singh, the guy behind India's, what some people call an economic miracle.
Yeah.
He might not be a flashy, in-your-face kind of leader, but he quietly reshaped India's destiny.
He did.
And trust me, this economic miracle, it wasn't just luck.
Right.
We've got a ton of sources here, like biographies, articles, economic analyses, the whole works.
Wow.
We're really trying to understand why Singh's story is so important.
Yes.
Not just for India,
Right.
but for the entire world.
You know, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's how Singh's journey brings together personal resilience, economic expertise, and a little bit of historical luck, you know?
Like he was in the right place at the right time.
Exactly. And his impact, it goes way beyond India's borders. It connects to global trends that, I bet you're already familiar with.
Oh, for sure. So let's rewind a bit. Okay.
Yep.
Here's this kid born in 1932 in a tiny village in pre-partition India.
Right.
And he ends up leading, what, 1 billion people
Yeah.
on the global stage?
It's amazing.
That's quite a journey. And speaking of journeys,
Yeah.
we've got to talk about the impact of partition itself. That was a huge upheaval, right?
Oh, absolutely. The partition of India in 1947, that was just immense turmoil, socially, politically,
Yeah.
millions of people displaced, violence erupting everywhere.
Just chaos.
Yeah, chaos. To live through that,
Mhm.
I mean, that kind of experience forges resilience. And, you see that in Singh later on.
You're saying it shaped him.
I think it's key to understanding how he leads.
Okay, resilience check.
Yeah.
But how does a kid from a village end up as prime minister? It's not like he just inherited the position.
No, not at all. This is where his academic journey becomes so crucial. We're talking Punjab University, then a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford, then a doctorate.
Wow.
It wasn't the typical path to power, especially back then.
So he was like a super student, never met a classroom he didn't like.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
And his area of expertise, international trade and development, that's not just some theoretical stuff.
Yeah.
This deep understanding of economics would be crucial later on.
When India really needed it.
Exactly.
Okay, so picture this, all right.
Right.
It's 1991. The world's getting used to this post-Cold War thing.
Right, yeah.
And India's economy, well, it's on the brink. We've all heard those stories about countries going bankrupt, hyperinflation, all that. But what was actually happening in India? How bad was it?
So for decades, India had followed this socialist model.
Okay.
Lots of government control over industries.
Right.
Very limited foreign investment.
So lots of regulations, limited choices for people.
Exactly. By the late 80s, it wasn't working.
It was falling apart.
The government was deep in debt. Foreign reserves were practically gone. Inflation was out of control.
It was that bad, huh?
It was a full-blown crisis, up there with some of the worst we've seen.
So it's 1991, crisis mode.
Yeah. And in walks Dr. Singh, kind of reluctantly, it seems, as the new finance minister.
Yeah.
He's got this famous quote, "No power on earth can stop an idea whose time has come."
Powerful.
Did he know how radical the changes had to be?
He definitely knew drastic measures were needed.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is that Singh, along with Prime Minister Rao, they actually implemented these reforms.
Revolutionary, you said?
For India, they were revolutionary.
Okay, but revolutionary sounds dramatic. Give us the specifics. What did these reforms actually do?
Okay, so they liberalized trade policies, fewer restrictions on imports and exports.
Okay.
They reduced government control over industries, let more private businesses thrive, and they opened up the economy to foreign investment.
So basically it went from state-controlled to a market-driven approach.
Yeah, essentially.
Whoa. A complete 180. I bet there was pushback. I mean, changing a whole country's economic system like that can't be easy.
Right.
But did it work?
It did, and in a big way.
India started seeing major economic growth. But we have to remember, this was a time of global growth, too.
Oh, right.
Especially for emerging markets. India wasn't alone. It was part of a bigger trend.
Makes sense.
But Singh's reforms, they put India in the perfect position to take advantage of that trend.
So they were set up for success.
Exactly.
Okay, but economic growth is just one part of the story, right? What about the everyday people in India? Did this trickle down to them?
That's the big question. And that's where some of Singh's other initiatives become so important.
Like what?
during his time as prime minister.
Wait, prime minister, he went from saving the economy to leading the whole country.
He did, yeah.
Wow, that's quite a jump.
It is. And his time as prime minister from 2004 to 2014, it's full of triumphs and controversies.
Oh, I bet.
But before we get into all of that, let's talk about those social programs.
Right, because growth without social progress, that's not really a win.
Exactly. Two initiatives stand out. The Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, MGNRGA for short.
MG.
Yeah. It guaranteed 100 days of paid work to rural households.
That's huge.
It was massive for fighting poverty. And then there's the Right to Information Act.
Oh, right. I've heard of that.
It gave citizens access to government information, holding officials accountable.
So both aimed at making life better for everyday Indians.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got economic reforms, social programs, and then there's the nuclear deal with the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big one, right?
Absolutely. This landmark agreement in 2008, it ended India's nuclear isolation.
Wow.
Allowed them to access technology and fuel for civilian purposes, of course. Remember, India had done nuclear tests back in '98.
Oh, right.
Which led to all those sanctions. This deal was a game changer.
It put them on the map, huh?
It signaled India's arrival as a major global player.
But wasn't it also kind of controversial?
Oh, yeah.
I vaguely remember some pushback.
You're right. Some said it compromised India's nuclear sovereignty, that it could even lead to an arms race in the region.
Oh, wow.
Others saw it as essential for India's energy needs and its place in the global economy.
So a real mixed bag of opinions.
Definitely.
So successes on the economic and global fronts. But it couldn't have all been smooth sailing, right? Even with someone like Singh at the helm.
You're picking up on something important. Despite his reputation for honesty, his government wasn't immune to scandal.
Oh, really?
Especially his second term. It was really bogged down by them.
Wait, scandals? But you said he had this reputation for honesty. How does that add up?
That's the paradox of Singh's legacy. While he was never personally linked to any wrongdoing, his government was hit by all these corruption scandals.
Involving different ministries?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they really tarnished his government's image, even though his own integrity remained pretty much intact.
So it's this weird contrast. A brilliant economist, reformer, brings India back from the brink, but also faces these serious challenges as a leader. It makes you wonder how he handled it all. Was he tough, demanding, or more behind the scenes?
That's where his personal style comes in.
Yeah.
And it's very different from your typical power-hungry politician.
Okay.
Singh was quiet, almost shy.
Really?
The opposite of those loud, charismatic figures we often see as leaders.
So not the kind of guy who'd be rallying the troops with a big speech.
Exactly. He was a technocrat, more comfortable with policy details than with public appearances. He believed in the power of ideas, rational decisions.
Interesting. So was this quiet approach a strength or a weakness? Did it help him or hold him back?
That's a question worth exploring, and it ties back to his early life, his education, that preference for substance over showmanship. To really understand his style, we need to go back to his roots.
All right, so next up, we're going back in time to see how those early experiences shaped Dr. Manmohan Singh.
It's a fascinating story.
And how those experiences set the stage for his journey to becoming the architect of modern India.
We'll uncover it all.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't just some peaceful village life.
Right.
He was born right before, one of the most turbulent things in South Asian history.
Yeah. The partition.
Partition of India.
Yeah, we mentioned it, but I think we need to go deeper.
Yeah?
For listeners who might not know about this, can you paint a picture? What was it actually like?
Imagine, a country split in two.
Wow.
Along religious lines, just millions of people suddenly uprooted.
Forced to move.
Yeah, forced to migrate.
Yeah.
Often with, nothing but the clothes they were wearing.
It's hard to even imagine.
Rampant communal violence, families torn apart.
Yeah.
It was traumatic for the whole region.
And Singh was there.
And Singh, just a young boy, experienced it firsthand.
It's hard to even fathom that level of upheaval. It really changes how you see his achievements later on, right?
Absolutely.
To go from that chaos to leading a nation.
It's a testament to his resilience.
Yeah.
And maybe even to his drive to create stability.
Oh, like that.
Partition, I think, gave him this, deep understanding of how fragile peace is.
Oh, for sure.
And how crucial unity is, especially in a place as diverse as India.
Yeah.
And those values, I think they became central to how he led later on.
Okay, so we've got the resilience factor, shaped by history, right? But resilience alone doesn't get you to Oxford, That takes serious brains. What set him apart academically?
Think about it. This is the 1950s.
Yeah.
Just a few years after India's independence.
Right.
For a young man from a newly independent nation, from a humble background, to get that chance to study at Oxford.
It's unheard of.
It was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Speaks to, his intellect, his drive.
Yeah.
And probably, some luck along the way.
A little bit of luck always helps.
A bit of luck.
So he goes to Oxford, and he doesn't just attend, he excels, right? First-class honors in economics.
He did.
That's not just showing up, that's mastering it. Was he already thinking about economics impacting people's lives, or was he more into theory back then?
Throughout his career, you see this focus on applying economics.
Really?
Yeah, even at Oxford.
Wow.
He wasn't just content with theory, he wanted to know how to use it.
To solve problems?
Yeah, real-world problems. His dissertation was about India's exports,
Oh, interesting.
Already thinking about how to use economics to improve his own country.
So we see him as this brilliant scholar, really into the practical side of economics.
Yeah.
But he didn't go straight from Oxford to being prime minister. What were those steps in between? How did he go from academia to, like, the halls of power?
His path wasn't the usual political climb. Remember, he wasn't a big charismatic speaker.
Right.
He was a technocrat, a brilliant mind,
Yeah.
brought in for his expertise, not because of, political connections.
So it was more, hey, this guy knows his stuff, let's get him to help.
Exactly.
Rather than him, campaigning for a job.
More like he was drafted into public service.
Drafted, I like that.
His first big role, chief economic advisor.
Oh, wow.
Early 1970s.
Right, when things are starting to crack.
Yeah, India's economic model was showing cracks then.
Right.
Later, he was governor of the Reserve Bank.
That's the central bank, right?
Yeah, the one that controls interest rates and all that.
Okay, got it.
Then, deputy chairman of the Planning Commission.
So he's shaping India's future.
Exactly.
Wow, these are all huge positions.
He's a major player in economic policy long before 1991.
So he's already a big deal.
Absolutely, he was a key figure.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, advising, shaping policy, but not in the spotlight, not like a politician.
Right.
Which makes his rise in 91 even more dramatic.
Yeah, it's a sink or swim moment for India.
Exactly, and they turn to this, quiet economist to guide them.
That's a lot of pressure. I mean, the whole country's economy is about to implode, and they're looking at you to fix it. Did he ever, express any doubts about that?
He was known for being so calm.
Yeah.
Really focused on solutions.
Right.
He may have felt the pressure, but he never shied away.
It's almost like his quiet confidence was an asset.
That's interesting.
People didn't need big promises. They needed someone who knew what to do.
Yeah, a steady hand.
And that's what Singh was.
He brought that to the table.
Yeah.
That deep understanding of economics, years of experience in the government, he was uniquely qualified.
He was the right guy at the right time.
As finance minister, tough decisions.
Yeah.
Challenge the status quo.
Had to convince people.
Yeah, convince everyone that his reforms were the way forward.
Okay, let's talk about those reforms. We know they were radical for India back then.
Yeah.
But break it down for non-economists. What were the biggest changes he made?
Remember those three things I mentioned?
Liberalizing trade, less government control.
Yeah, and opening up to foreign investment.
Right.
Those are the core of it.
Okay.
He got rid of regulations that had been around for ages.
Wow.
Holding back businesses, stifling growth.
Yeah.
He exposed industries to global competition, made them more efficient.
Forced them to innovate.
Exactly. And he invited foreign companies to invest in India.
Bring in that capital.
Yeah, and their expertise.
He totally flipped the script on India's economy.
It was a gamble.
It was.
But it seems like it paid off.
It did. But I bet there were some bumps along the way.
Oh, definitely. Challenges, pushbacks, setbacks.
Of course.
But his reforms, they laid the groundwork for India's economic comeback.
And set the stage for them becoming a global power.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered his early life, his academic success, his rise as finance minister.
Yeah.
But before we get into his time as prime minister, I'm kind of curious. We focused a lot on his work. What about his personal life during all this?
That's a great question.
It's not an easy one to answer, though, right?
Yeah, because he was so private.
Really private.
Even while he was in some of the most public-facing roles.
Interesting.
He wasn't into socializing or parties, didn't care about self-promotion or the media, simple tastes, content with a quiet life outside work.
But he had a life outside work, right?
Oh, of course.
Family, friends, hobbies. No one works 24/7.
From what we know, family was everything to him.
Yeah.
His wife, Kaur, she was his rock.
Ah.
Throughout his career, a grounding force amidst all the chaos.
Yeah.
They had 3 daughters. By all accounts, he was a devoted husband and father.
That's nice to hear.
It's this interesting contrast, his public image.
The serious economist.
Right, versus this private family man.
It makes him more human.
It does.
It's a reminder that even people in high office, they have families, struggles, lives outside politics.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we see a bit more of the man behind the policies. Let's move on to the main event. Dr. Singh as Prime Minister. 2 terms, a decade leading one of the most populous and dynamic nations. What were his big wins and the biggest challenges?
It was a time of both incredible progress and some, unexpected turmoil.
Ah, the scandals.
Yeah, on one hand, the economy kept booming.
Right.
He started social programs that helped millions.
But those scandals really came to a head during his time as Prime Minister.
They did, and they cast a shadow on his legacy, even though he wasn't personally involved in any wrongdoing.
So it's a mixed bag, success, but also turmoil. How do we even start to understand his legacy?
I think understanding the context is key. The world was changing rapidly. Globalization, technology, and India was finding its place.
He was leading them through a lot of change.
Incredible opportunity and uncertainty.
No wonder things are so eventful.
To understand his legacy, we need to look at his policies, his style, the challenges he faced.
Both within India and internationally.
Exactly.
All right, let's do that. Let's look closer at the ups and downs of Dr. Manmohan Singh's decade leading India. Okay, so Dr. Singh's time as Prime Minister, definitely not a dull moment, right?
Not at all.
Economic booms, social programs, nuclear deals, and then those scandals. It's a lot to take in.
It really is.
But before we get into the details, I'm curious, how did he lead through all of that?
Yeah.
Was he calling the shots or more of a consensus kind of guy?
That's where his personality is so interesting.
Right, because he was known as being quiet, even shy.
Exactly. He didn't crave the limelight or power for its own sake.
Yeah, not the typical politician.
Right.
But did that work for him? I mean, India is a huge, complex country, so many different voices.
It's fascinating. In a way, his personality was perfect for what India was going through then.
Really?
He wasn't about imposing his will or shutting down different opinions.
Mm-hmm.
He was more about finding common ground, building consensus, letting the best ideas win.
Even if they weren't his ideas.
Even then.
So more of a facilitator than a dictator.
Yeah, something like that.
I could see that working, especially in such a diverse democracy.
Right.
But wasn't there a risk of seeming weak or indecisive?
Oh, for sure. Some people criticize that.
They did.
Yeah, they said his quiet consensus style made him look too passive.
Especially during a crisis.
Yeah, they wanted him to be more forceful, push his own agenda harder.
But didn't his supporters like that about him?
Oh, absolutely. They saw him as a change from all the, loud, self-serving politicians.
A breath of fresh air.
Yeah, they appreciated his honesty, his intelligence, his genuine desire to serve India.
So it's a two-sided coin. His leadership.
It seems that way.
Respect and admiration, but also open to criticism.
Yeah.
How do you think he balanced those two sides?
It's hard to know for sure, but I think it goes back to his belief in good ideas.
Yeah.
In finding solutions that work for everyone. He wasn't after personal gain or political gain.
I was about India.
Yeah, making India better, that's what drove him. And it showed, even if his personality wasn't, super flashy.
Makes you think maybe his kind of leadership is what we need more of today. We're so bombarded with noise, everyone yelling their opinions.
True.
Maybe a leader who listens more than they shout. Maybe that's what we need.
That's a really interesting point.
Right.
Yeah, in this world of, personality politics, echo chambers online.
It's exhausting.
It can be.
There's something appealing about a leader who cares about substance, not just style.
About unity, not division.
Exactly.
Maybe Singh's legacy isn't just about his specific policies or the economy.
What else is it about then?
Maybe it's also about a different way to lead, a quieter, more thoughtful approach.
Maybe that's what the world needs right now.
It's definitely something to think about.
It is.
As we consider the challenges India faces, the world faces.
Yeah.
What kind of leaders will step up? Will it be the loud ones, the ones making headlines? Or will it be the quiet, steady ones working behind the scenes?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
It is.
And on that note, I think we've come to the end of our deep dive into Dr. Manmohan Singh's life and legacy.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. From a small village to the global stage, economic crisis to political power, his story is one of resilience, intelligence, and a deep commitment to his country.
It really challenges how we think about leadership.
It does.
It reminds us that true greatness doesn't always come with, a booming voice or a commanding presence.
Right.
Sometimes it's quiet determination, integrity, a focus on making things better.
Well said.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you learned something new about Dr. Manmohan Singh, the architect of modern India.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep looking for those deeper meanings